Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Art Theater again. My name is Craig Smith. As you know, I am the director of the Center for First Amendment Studies. Oh, you are there. Oh, stunning what technology can do, isn't it? I still prefer the story of Daniel Webster, who could throw his voice a mile, you know, without a microphone. Those were the days. Anyway, I'm the director of the Center for First Amendment Studies on the campus at Cal State University, Long Beach, and it's tax exempt. So you can contribute to it and write it off on your taxes, okay? So that, you know. We've handed out some flyers. We ran out, but they're about the course next semester that I'll be offering. And next semester we'll be covering obscenity, indecency, and violence in film and censorship thereof. And we'll be starting in February. So I think you probably can't register yet for that course, but pretty soon you'll be able to go on the B-Word Project website, and that'll take you directly to the College of Professional Studies, and you can register directly that way, okay? Another piece of business, again, I want to thank the Art Theater for hosting us. This is a wonderful venue for this, and I look forward to coming back in the spring. But right now, they are playing the movie J. Edgar, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and that film covers some of the stuff we've been talking about in some detail. So you might want to drop over here and come see that movie. I'm sure, given the amount of money that they put into it, $35 million, that it has high and wonderful production values. And of course, as the director of the Center for First Amendment Studies, I do want to thank the Long Beach Community Foundation, which supplies us with some of the funds for some of the functions that we perform in the community. If you go to our website, you can see that we have something like 15 research papers on very important First Amendment issues, everything from freedom of religion to what we can do about hate speech. We have a number of programs that we have sponsored around the city, and tomorrow morning I fly to New Orleans, where I'm speaking on First Amendment issues in a city that needs no help when it comes to censorship. All right, tonight we're going to be looking at a movie called The Front that came out in 1976, a wonderful year. I was working in the White House that year. I was a speechwriter for President Ford. It didn't do him any good. But I tried. The interesting thing about this film, it stars Woody Allen, and it's a classic Woody Allen film, but it was written by Walter Bernstein, who actually used fronts. And Walter's still alive, and his brother David is emeriti, used to teach in our history department. So in keeping with one of the things I've been trying to do, and that is put a human face on what happened with blacklisting and the McCarthy period, I want to focus tonight on Walter Bernstein and talk about what happened to him. He suffered through blacklisting, and he gives us a unique look at how writers used fronts or proxy writers to get their material to the stage or to the screen. Bernstein lived the American dream only to see it evaporate. The grandson of Jewish Polish immigrants, he attended Dartmouth on a scholarship. Walter Bernstein started his writing career at The New Yorker after he returned from service in World War II. Think of how many of these people were veterans and then persecuted. I mean, it's really sad. He lived in Greenwich Village, often visiting the coffee houses where intellectuals held forth about the virtues of communism. He moved to Hollywood in 1947, just as the famous House Un-American Activities Committee was beginning to hit its stride. Bernstein became an apprentice to Robert Rosen, who directed John Garfield in one of his best roles, the tormented boxer in Body and Soul. While Garfield was not a communist, he was sympathetic to Rosen and to the writer of Body and Soul, Abraham Polanski, who were full-blown members of the American Communist Party, as was Walter Bernstein by this time. Bernstein watched when Rosen was named as one of the unfriendly 19, and relieved when Rosen was not named one of the Hollywood 10. Rosen survived and went on to make such films as The Hustler with Paul Newman. Polanski, on the other hand, was blacklisted. John Garfield whose real name was Julius Garfield, was also unlucky. Eventually, he was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee and avoided their questions. The experience drove him to drink and back to Broadway, where he performed brilliantly in Golden Boy, only to die of a heart attack. In the meantime, Bernstein moved over to work for Howard Hecht, yet another member of the Communist Party. Bernstein did some moonlighting for the Daily Worker, the communist paper at the time, and also wrote for Elia Kazan, an up-and-coming director and another communist sympathizer. It was through Elia Kazan that Bernstein befriended Zero Mostel, yet another communist who would eventually star in the movie that you're going to see tonight. And you're going to love Zero Mostel in this movie. He's absolutely hysterical. During the 1948 presidential campaign, Bernstein helped write speeches for Henry Wallace, the former vice president who was running on the Progressive Party ticket and had been endorsed by the Communist Party of the United States. When Bernstein moved over to CBS, becoming a writer for the serial Danger, he suddenly found that he had been blacklisted because of various associations. His name appeared in Red Channels, which was a list published by the American Broadcasting Company of people who should not be hired. The director told him he would have to use a pseudonym to continue working on Danger. He tried working part-time as Paul Baumann, only to be dumped by his agent. However, he continued to submit scripts to CBS under the assumed name of Paul Baumann. When the director of Danger was asked to bring Paul Baumann to the set, it was explained that Baumann was a hermit who lived in Colorado and refused to come out of his house. CBS then demanded that Baumann come to New York, and they quickly reported that under and due to stress, Baumann had died. When Elia Kazan was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee in April of 1952, he gave up names to save his career. It worked. He went on to win the Oscar and make James Dean famous. Along with Bud Schulberg and Lee J. Cobb, who also gave up names, Kazan made On the Waterfront in 1954 with Marlon Brando. It defends the right to be an informer, if you look at the movie. It won many Academy Awards at the height of the McCarthy era. But Kazan became a pariah to many, including Bernstein and Mostel. Zero Mostel could not walk down the street if he saw Kazan coming. He would either turn away or run after Kazan and try and beat him up. In the meantime, Bernstein found a good liar who was quick on his feet, named Paul Monash, who fronted for Bernstein on a one-time basis for one script. Rita became his second front and demanded 25% of the pay he received for the service. The arrangements continued until her psychiatrist told her the job was undermining her self-esteem. So she quit as his front. Leo became his third front, but quit when he could not explain to his friends why he wasn't living higher on the hog given all the television screen credits he was getting. Shirley became Bernstein's fourth front, mainly for Westinghouse Summer Theater. But when her husband got an acting job in Hollywood, she ended the relationship. Howard became his fifth front, but since he was already a very good writer, he broke off the relationship when Bernstein's scripts were not up to his standard. Quote, he said to Bernstein, "How can I put my name on such stuff?" Unquote. Bernstein moved to a new show called You Are There. Remember that show? That show actually made me into a history major when I went on to college. I loved it so much. It starred Walter Cronkite, as you'll recall. The show brought history alive, and it really developed the credibility of CBS. The irony of it is that eventually, many years later, I would work for Walter Cronkite as a consultant to CBS, doing research for conventions and election nights and inaugurations. You'll remember how the show ended. What kind of a day was it? It was a day like all days that alter and illuminate our times, and you were there. The show aired from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Sundays with the CBS team, including Mike Wallace interviewing from offstage various important people. The death of Socrates was my favorite. Bernstein worked with two other blacklisted writers in a small hotel room to produce the script using a front named Leslie, number 7 if you were keeping count. But then You Are There moved to Hollywood to be filmed. It lost its live feel and died as a television program. 1954 marked the fall of McCarthy and his censorship by the United States Senate. Leslie continued to front for Bernstein, who wrote adaptations of Mark Twain's The Prince and the Pauper and the television version of Thornton Wilder's The Bridge of San Luis Rey. Bernstein was finally able to write scripts in New York for BBC, a special series that starred Boris Karloff. In 1957, McCarthy died and went to hell. And even without his liver. And the Supreme Court overturned the famous Dennis ruling with the Yates ruling in 1957, which said it was okay to advocate the overthrow of the government of the United States as long as you didn't do anything about it. The initial cracks in the entertainment industry blacklist were evident on television, specifically at CBS. In 1957, blacklisted actor Norman Lloyd was hired by Alfred Hitchcock as an associate producer for his anthology series, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, then entering its 3rd season on the network. On November 30th, 1958, a live CBS production of Wonderful Town, based on the short stories by Ruth McKenna, appeared with the proper writing credit of blacklisted Edward Chodorow, along with his literary partner, Joseph Fields. The following year, actress Betty Hutton insisted that blacklisted composer Jerry Fielding be hired as a musical director for her new series on CBS. At the same time, Bernstein started to write a script for Sophia Loren's movie, produced by her husband Carlo Ponti for Paramount, when he was suddenly called to appear before HUAC. It had not yet died away, hadn't followed McCarthy. Bernstein was fired, and when he refused to respond to HUAC, he had to go into hiding. United Artists, a liberal studio, then hired him to write The Magnificent Seven. With the black system dying, lawyers from Paramount interviewed Bernstein and rehired him to write the Sophia Loren movie. In the middle of the 70s, Walter Bernstein celebrated the end of the blacklist era by writing the front for Woody Allen, who stars in the film with Zero Mostel. Woody Allen works as a nebbish front, one of the many that Bernstein hired. And the good news about this is, America always makes comebacks. We tend to overcome our First Amendment crises and come back stronger once we come out of them. And the happy news was that Walter Bernstein was nominated for an Academy Award for the script of the movie you're about to see, The Front. And I will see all of you next semester. Thank you.